I promised you an episode where I would talk about this heater that we bought. Well, today's the day. First thing, I want to let you know that this episode is sponsored by SimpliSafe. Christy's in installing it right now. So, naturally I'd be out here talking about the heater, right? In a few minutes we'll go in and see how she's getting along. We bought this heater at Tractor Supply a couple of weeks ago now. We were desperate for a heater. We didn't have time to wait for one to be shipped. We had to find something locally, and I was tired of the propane heater. We're going to do a little bit of a comparison to our other propane heater in a few minutes, but first let me tell you the benefits of this heater. This is an 80,000 BTU heater, and it is hot. Now, it's hot on the front. I'm sitting here and I've got my hand right on the heater back here, no problem, but it is hot in front. It's supposed to heat up to 2,000 square feet, which is exactly what we've got. But of course, 2,000 square feet with at least some insulation, I would think. In our case, we have ventilation right along the top rib, which lets all the heat out as fast as we can generate it. So it doesn't heat enough to keep this building warm, but it does heat enough to take the edge off. It runs on kerosene, it runs on number 1 diesel or number 2 diesel. We have heard that you should not use the dyed fuel, the off-road fuel. That might hinder the usage for a lot of our viewers. We use on-road fuel. I know it costs more, but it's just a lot handier for us to get at this point. I wanted a heater that ran on diesel. I've got those little propane tanks, and they're fine, but I just have to refill those or exchange them, and they're $15 or more to get exchanged. It's just a pain for us to do. Whereas we've got a 55-gallon drum of diesel here. We can use it for all these purposes, including this heater. So that's why I was looking for a diesel heater. Another advantage of this heater over the propane heater and some other, like the bigger torpedo heaters or bullet heaters, some people call them, is the noise. This one is a radiant heater, but it's also a little bit of forced air. So it's rated about 82 dB versus well over 90 dB for some of the other heaters. We thought that we would be able to use this heater in the shed here and still be able to shoot video, and I think that's accurate. Yeah, it's not quiet, you know, like say a furnace would be, but it's quieter than one of those torpedo heaters. It's also quieter than our propane torpedo heater that we've got. Before I made the rush purchase at Tractor Supply, we did look online at some reviews of this heater. There was a lot of negative reviews. Now on Amazon, there was only 4 reviews on this particular model. They were all 1-star reviews. Encouraging, right? On Tractor Supply, the average was a 4-star, but when I looked at the details, there were 20 reviews at 1 star, and reading through them, they did not seem like embittered customers. They were folks trying to get the thing to work, and they couldn't get it to work. We'll talk about some of the negatives that we've experienced with this heater and the negative reviews, maybe how to work around them. But first, let's go see how Christy's doing. You know, like you guys, we've seen the SimpliSafe ads for a long time now, and we've always resisted any sort of a security system. We just didn't feel like it was necessary, and we were worried about the cost. But we had a little bit of a scare a few months ago while we were away at a trade show, and so we decided we had to do something. Again, I was a little nervous about the price of the monitoring. It's not, to me, a one-time cost. I don't really get too concerned about one-time expenses, but monthly fees just wear me out. But as you know, we've recently changed insurance, and Steve Thompson with Country Financial let me know that we could probably cover the monthly expense, $15 a month, of SimpliSafe just by cheaper insurance, of having the monitoring, and then they can lower the price of our insurance, which that makes it all worthwhile. So if the monitoring is essentially offset by the decrease in insurance price, well, why not? And it'll give us some peace of mind, especially Christy. Let's see how she's doing on it.
Well, installing the system was simple. The SimpliSafe system is incredibly effective, reliable, and it should make our house more safe. The instructions were easy to follow and intuitive. I really like that I could set it up myself. I didn't have to have any professionals come in. I also like that it's fair pricing with no contracts or hidden fees.
Welcome to SimpliSafe.
For 50 cents a day, you're getting a professionally monitored system 24/7, and they'll call the police if anything happens. And yes, the system will still work even if you lose power, Wi-Fi, or the system is attacked.
Now choose a name. Entry sensor. Named.
They have quite a few different sensors. This one's for breaking glass. Yeah, I didn't get it very straight. This one detects water leaks. Now if it leaks under the sink, I'll know about it. You customize the system by picking the components you need or want, and there's a lot of options. I put a freeze detector out in our garage by our hot water heater and water softener. There's options for inside and outside your house, including a video doorbell and cameras that'll alert you when people come up. SimpliSafe is having their biggest sale of the year. Go ahead and protect your home and family with SimpliSafe. But hurry, the offer ends Cyber Monday. You can click the link in the description to learn more.
I suppose I should clean up my Mr. Heater before we talk about that, right? Well, here we go. Is that better? That's as clean as it's going to get. We bought this 2 years ago. 2 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, when we first did our 24 by 24 pole barn shed in Carmel. It's a 30,000 to 60,000 BTU LP heater. For that 24 by 24 with the extensive insulation that we had in it, we could heat it in about 15 to 20 minutes with this thing. This meant that we didn't have to use a lot of propane. We didn't have to make many trips to the store. So for that scenario, it worked fine. In this shed, even at 60,000 BTU, that's the rating, it didn't seem like it put out enough heat to ever really put a dent in the cold. So it wasn't quite enough. Now I saw a heater look just like this, 30,000 to 60,000. It wasn't a Mr. Heater brand, but I saw it at Menards for $90 this week. That's one of the advantages. $90 for this heater. We paid $249 for that heater over there. Even if LP is a little more painful to come up with, to get, to exchange, it's going to take a long time to pay for that additional cost for the diesel heater. But of course it is a more powerful heater, so that's got to be one aspect to it as well. But you could buy two of these and run them both with propane for a good while before you would ever get up to your cost of your diesel heater. I find this heater not to regulate the flow very well. When the tank gets somewhat empty, the amount of heat coming out of it declines. So it's not a consistent amount of flame, not a consistent amount of fuel gets to be burned. So overall, I would recommend this heater. It's not perfect, but it's consistent. It's easy to light. I'm pretty happy with it. I'll put one of these on our Amazon store because I think you would like one of these if you've got a smaller building than what we've got here, a little bit tighter airspace. This is a good match for you. Now this heater comes from Master. It also comes from several other brands. One of the brands I saw was ProTemp, and when you look at these, they look identical. When you read the reviews, they read identical. I'm pretty certain it's the same exact heater. There may be other brands as well. It's clearly an import product, and they're all the same. You've seen that with many other products that we buy now, many brands, the same exact underlying product. So let's evaluate some of the negative reviews that we've seen. The biggest one is it will not ignite. I've tried and tried and it will not ignite. You flip the switch on, it squirts out a little bit of fuel, but it doesn't ignite. If you do this several times and it fails to ignite, you end up with a bunch of raw fuel, not only all over the front of the heater, but on the floor or whatever you've got sitting in front of the heater. Another negative review is that it shuts off after a little while. I have not experienced that. I don't necessarily have a diagnosis on that. There is a fuel pressure switch adjustment on the back. I've played with it a little bit, but I haven't seen a whole lot of impact with the small amount of adjustment that I've done on that. It certainly doesn't impact the inability to ignite. Another item that some of the reviews mentioned is a lack of a thermostat. From what I can tell, this thing is either all the way on, a full 80,000 BTUs, or it's off. There's no in between, nor is there a turn off and on its own. It's on. until you turn it off. So yeah, it'd be nice to have a thermostat. Hasn't been a big deal for me because it's always been cold out here, and if we ever do get it warm, I just turn it off and don't worry about it. Now it's probably 40 degrees outside, and I've had the heater running maybe 20 minutes in here this morning. I still don't have the ceiling in, so there's very little insulation value in here, but I certainly have already felt a difference with this heater. I've probably taken 5 to 10 degrees off, at least at this end. It makes it bearable to actually work in this building without gloves, without big clothes, you know, that reduce your mobility. I wanted to accurately show the ignition when it was cold. So we'll cut away here now, and you can see us actually ignite the unit. Okay, to light this thing, once we're plugged in, all we have to do is flip this switch. Well, at least that's how the documentation states. Since it's cold, I have found that it doesn't light. It just will not light when it's cold, using cold air for intake with regular diesel, number 2 diesel. So we're going to try another approach, and I'm sure this approach will work. See this heater here? Propane heater, it starts every time. So I use the propane heater and I aim it toward the diesel heater. Let me plug it in here. Warm. Now you might ask, since I have the propane heater, why do I even want the diesel heater? The answer is pretty simple. It's a lot easier for me to go get 55 gallons of diesel, which I can use for all my equipment, than it is to fetch these little, 20-pound tanks of propane. Now, I suppose if I was really on top of things, I would either get a big propane tank out here or route the other propane tank that I have a line all the way out to the shed. Now, that's beyond this video. I wanted something that burned diesel fuel. That's why I chose this. Mary's already liking the heat from the first heater. So if I wait here just a couple of minutes, this thing will ignite on the first or maybe second try, but I won't have that smoking issue. Let's see if I've talked long enough to make that work. Here we go. Now it starts the fan first, and then it tries to ignite here in a minute. We should see the ignition. Might even hear it. Trying to ignite now. There it goes. First try. You can see it didn't smoke much at all. So it ignited on the very first try using warm intake air. And we really didn't see any smoke. Maybe just a little bit. I'll go turn my other heater off now so I don't have to use a whole lot of propane. So I guess the summary is if you want to use this diesel radiant heater, you have to buy a second heater to start it. No. That's not really what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that in order to start this radiant heater, in order to get it to ignite when it's cold, let's say less than 20 degrees Fahrenheit, you have to have warm intake air. So it just won't start, at least with regular diesel. I shouldn't say this on here, but I tried starting fluid, I tried several other things to get it to start. I could not get it to start with any approach other than warm intake air, and it's 100% when the air is warm. So let's say you've got an environment where it never gets below 50 degrees in your building, let's say. If your building is well insulated and you heat it most every day, it won't be too cold in the mornings when you come out to get started. This thing will be fine. But if you've got a building site where it's less than 20 degrees, you want to use this thing outdoors, I think that's why it gets 1 star. I don't think I could recommend it there. So why did we get it? Just like I said before, we got it because we were in a pinch and because we don't think it's going to be a long-term approach to heating our building. This is a short-term solution until we get our ceiling in, until we get some, permanent heating and maybe air conditioning in this building. Okay, the heater gets 1 star on Amazon, a bunch of negative reviews on TractorSupply.com. The Pro Temp version has hundreds of reviews, not all of them positive. I submit that you can make this heater work. It may cause you frustration. If it's really cold outside or really cold where in the area you're going to want to be heating, it is hard to start, as you've seen. But you can make it work. At first I was going to put this heater on my Amazon store, but for a couple of reasons I'm not. The main reason is all the negative reviews that you've seen. The other one is that you cannot return this product. Once you put fuel in it, it cannot be returned through Amazon or through any approach like that. I'm not sure whether you can return it to Tractor Supply or your local retailer where you buy it. That would be up to them. But for those reasons, I find it hard to recommend. It's a little bit risky. I don't mind it. I'm actually relatively happy with the heater, but I know its limitations. I hope that's helpful. Can a one-star product do the job? I hope I've answered that. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time on Tractor Time with Tim.